everyone. This is update for December 1, 2022, day 281 of the war, end of the date update. So as always, I'm going to start with general topics, and then we're going to switch to Ukraine. So there was some interesting information on Ukrainian sort of state budget. I told many times that at this point Ukraine economically completely wiped out, but just going to give you a little bit information, like specific information. So in the month of November, the sort of expenses of Ukrainian budget were 264 billion Ukrainian hryvnias. You can divide it by 40 roughly. So that's going to be what 6 billion and a change, 6.5 billion, let's say. Out of that, and I'm just going to use Ukrainian currency numbers. Out of that, basically, printed money, or it's not correct expression technically, because it's basically, well, to extent it is printed money, but also it's basically issuing unbacked credit, because all of the money that we have, they're not really equity, they're really debt, right? So if you really think from a perspective, like financial perspective or accounting, whichever the world you are in, you always have equity and then debt, right? In anything, and money that we have in the world is really just debt. There's no equity there. So the correct way to say it is just issuing unfunded credit. So what happened there is out of 264, 170 billion was basically this unbacked credit, and 94 were actually sort of income that was received, or taxes received from actual economy. So basically, unbacked credit is 64% out of the total spend. So, and the only reason prices do go up quite a bit in Ukraine. There's a significant inflation, at least 20, 30, 50%, depending on for some food items, went up almost 2 times. For example, eggs, they went up nearly 1.8 times. But it's not as sort of, it could be much worse, basically, right? Given that the unbacked credit, as you can see, is 64%. The only reason it's not happening is because Ukraine is receiving financial aid from the West. So that really helps basically reduce this inflation, because then Ukraine buys whatever it needs abroad. So in a way, it exports its inflation to the world, basically, through this mechanism. I mean, it's not a huge number, because Ukrainian economy at this point is tiny, microscopic, but on a net basis, that's what it is. Then in Ukrainian authority stated that Ukraine needs extra 3 billion cubic meters of natural gas to get through the winter. So basically, there's not enough natural gas, which will cost about $4 billion US. This is a result of I spoke about this about sometime in May, when Ukrainian government and Ukrainian parliament passed the laws that essentially put punitive taxation on natural gas production and exploration in Ukraine. So result, nobody invests. They just milk what they have, and the result, you have shortages of natural gas. So this is no much difference than European policies, than policies in the U.S. Basically, in the developed world, this is pretty much the same kind of sort of erroneous policies, basically, that lead to the same result no matter where you are. It's basically, if you do it's if you practice communism, you will get all of the typical things that come with it: the shortages, deaths, and famine, and all of that sort of nice stuff. And just for the record, for those who are new, don't know, Ukraine can be self-sufficient in natural gas. It has It used to have actually a very big deposit of natural gas. They were depleted by the Soviet Union during Soviet times, but there's still enough for the country to cover its own sort of needs, and especially since needs sort of went down tremendously, it should be more than sort of enough to the point that Ukraine could have exported that natural gas. But as you can see, this is why I'm mentioning all the time that Ukrainian sort of government, like all leadership, like parliament and president, they are bigger danger to the survival of Ukraine as a country than actually Russia. Next topic is we're going to talk a little bit again, as always, we talk about energy because it affects everyone's life and it's everywhere basically. You can think this way that behind every unit of GDP, you have unit of energy, and if unit of energy is getting like more expensive, then you're gonna have less GDP. So your personal standard of living will go down no matter what. So if you don't have energy or energy is expensive, you know you're gonna be worse off. Let's put it this way. It's very simple, sort of logical chain there. Going back to the energy, finally European Union passed the price cap for Russian crude oil, and it's at $60 per barrel. I don't know where exactly Russian crude, which is brand name is Urals, is trading, but it's somewhere a little bit under Brent, and Brent right now is $86. It's usually very close to Brent. If you take 30% off, that's going to be your $60 essentially. Given that Russia is already selling to many of uh, you know, many of its buyers at 30, maybe a little bit lower discount. Essentially, this whole cap is just political posturing, basically populism without really doing anything. Not to mention that I think that's in the first place bad idea. It actually gonna hurt everyone. But even what's it's done is basically just kind of like a scam, just to kind of paint the picture. Then natural gas in Europe, that it's going up. I mentioned yesterday was I think 1500. Now it's at 1700. So again, the problems there are not going away in Europe specifically. They will remain as long as energy policies that are being implemented in Europe stay there. Then things will stay there. The things will get bad. They will not get any better. So there's going to be permanent pain. It's probably you've seen there's a lot of deindustrialization in Europe happening just because it's becoming uncompetitive, because it's always about competition. Even people think that European bureaucrats think that they can somehow rule out competition. They cannot change the the rules of life, the rules of nature, and nature is about competition. So as a result, Europe is losing its producers to the U.S. that has even against even though there are bad policies there as well, but they're not as horrific as in Europe. And I will try to make that video about this whole energy policy situation over a weekend, because I promised. I know it's like 3 months ago. I haven't done it, and I feel bad. So I'll try to make it this weekend and just explain why this whole what's being done in Europe, and I mean around in the West in general, and to extend this madness is even spreads even to Russia, by the way. So why this whole thing is not gonna work, and is actually uh, has nothing to do with saving environment, and it has basically everything to do with economic exploitation of people who not part of that. So anyways, so situation in Europe is getting somewhat worse. the LNG supply is not enough to cover the need, and the part of the reason why it goes up is because this so-called alternative energy is not reliable, so there is not enough wind. So then you need more natural gas to generate, the same base load of electricity. So you draw more from the storage facilities, and so as a result, the price goes up. Very simple, again, logic here. However, there's not still even that is not enough. So there is an announcement in France that there will be sort of planned, or yeah, I guess planned is the right word, blackouts or basically shutdown of electricity from 8 in the morning till 13 in the afternoon, and then from 18 till 20 in the evening. So this is sort of first sort of sorry, this is kind of like sort of first major country in Europe announcing that. And the other one is Estonia. Also, the government there announced that citizens need to be prepared to not have to have intermittent supply of electricity. So as you can see, this is again results of all of the same failed policies, and this is just the beginning. If the winter gets cold, you'll see this sort of rolling kind of like blackouts across Europe. It's not going to be as horrific as in Ukraine, obviously, because different situation, but I'm sure it will not be comfortable. Let's put this way. Now let's switch a little bit to China. That's just another hot topic there. So today, Chinese president met with Charles Michel, who is head of the European Council. Basically, the message there was from Chinese president: "Don't interfere in our affairs, or else." Right? So, or else we more or less understand what it is. So that's the essence of the. So as you can see, China is becoming more and more assertive on the world scene, and that probably will continue, sort of happening more and more. So, in another news out of China, if you remember, I mentioned that there are that basically state is trying to help or bail out real estate sector, real estate developers in China, using three essentially state-controlled banks in China. I think one was Agricultural Bank of China, then Bank something like Bank of China, I think, and Communications Bank or something like that. So that doesn't really help. Real estate sales continue going down in China. So basically, you cannot really stop this implosion, uh, you know, because this whole economy is much larger than what government has. It's like almost again the forces of the nature versus a person, and nature always wins. So, but the only sort of I wouldn't say it's positive, but the effect is that slowdown was much smaller, only 0.3% in November. However, cumulative decline for January through November of this year is 42.6%. So as you can imagine, that's huge. So and that's why you're seeing these tensions in China, and you're going to see more of those. Eventually, Chinese government, Chinese top will have to do something about it. That's a 1 billion question. What they're gonna do? They can, as I said before, they can direct all of this negative energy sort of somewhere else, whether it's gonna be Taiwan or whatever else they're gonna do, or it's gonna be directed internally, because but which means potentially civil war or something similar, because as I mentioned before, Chinese top does not have sort of vision, does not have solution how to move forward, how to solve this problem, and how to continue sort of economic growth in a positive way. However, China is not is continuing building its sort of alliances. And I mentioned also this before, a couple of weeks ago, that Chinese president is going to visit Saudi Arabia. So that he's going there on December 7, and they have a summit there on December 9. So basically, he's trying to build support, and um, essentially, what he's trying to do, he's probably going to offer to basically all of those Persian and Gulf state that are, I'd say, not really viable with military wise, or just generally not very like viable. Uh, that China probably is going to offer military protection for all of those regimes, Saudi Arabia, obviously, and all of those like Qatar and UAE, all of those essentially, in exchange for this for realignment of those countries with China. So this is before the same was happening, except it was U.S. that was offering basically military protection for these countries in exchange for basically cooperation and supply of crude oil to the West. Now China wants to kind of like, you know, hijack or take, I wouldn't say hijack, but like essentially switch these countries, to be dependent on Chinese military support. That's essentially why Chinese president is going there. He's definitely not going to accomplish that this time, but he's going to test the water if it's possible, if it's viable sort of option, if there is willingness in the Persian Gulf to switch basically sides from basically U.S. or West to China, and given there is significant sort of alienation between, let's say, Saudi Arabia and U.S. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but it's sort of worth a shot for the Chinese side, because the probability is not close to zero. Let's put it this way. Then Russian diplomat in Vienna already formally announced that that there is triangle has been formed, and triangle I mean Russia, China, Iran. So this, what we've been observing now, it's sort of more official. So there is official sort of triangle. So this is one alliance. The core of it, there's going to be more countries joining it, but the core, those three, and obviously that's opposition to the West. Then a little bit about sort of kind of interesting parts about the Russian crude sales. So Pakistan came to Russia and proposed buying Russian crude, but they were asking for 30-40% discount, which Russia said that they're not going to do that. So just kind of interesting, sort of just to see how, let's say, countries in the world trying to take advantage essentially of the Russia situation. Then there was also statistics released from Gazprom about its export. It's cumulative, so basically it's January to November. So in a way, it's kind of like to extend looking in rear view mirror, because situation is deteriorating much more significantly in, let's say, November, October, September. But for cumulative, Gazprom lost 50% of its export. It used to be 200 billion cubic meters. Now it's 95. If we'll really look at not in rear, I guess the more short-term situation, this situation is even much worse. It's probably 30-40 billion cubic meters. I don't have exact numbers, but it's significantly worse. So basically, export of Russian natural gas is grinding to, I wouldn't say halt, but it just essentially no more than 25% of what used to be. The only sort of let's say, option for the Russia to actually make up these losses is to export fertilizer, which is essentially natural gas converted into the sort of into the solid form. Um, and for that reason, there's still negotiation to open this ammonia pipeline, which is actually ammonia is liquid. So so there's a negotiation is going on, and there are rumors that there is significant progress. Sorry, progress has been made on that. So we'll see in probably next week or so if that is going to happen. As a reminder, Ukraine is asking a return of all of its POWs in return for opening this ammonia pipeline. Also, in other news about the commodities that are related to Russia, so first, Airbus announced that it will stop buying Russian titanium, which I would say probably wishful thinking, because there is not much of titanium on the world market. So far, they announced that they are buying it from the U.S. and Japan, but those countries, anyways, they don't have their own sort of production of they don't have their own resource. So this is just they just basically get ore somewhere else and then they melt it there. So again, and if you remove Russia is about 30% of the titanium market. If you remove that, the prices will also skyrocket there. Also, price for aluminum on London Metal Exchange also jumped to 2.5 thousand US dollars. That's sort of renewed push up. That's also tied to Russia. Russia is also one of the largest producers of aluminum. Sort of primary aluminum, not sort of recycled aluminum, but actually sort of brand new one. So again, this is all not going to be helpful in terms of inflation, and that's another reason why inflation is not going away anytime soon, even though markets are extremely exuberant since I think Tuesday, I believe, or Wednesday, when there was a speech by the Jerome Powell, head of Federal Reserve. So market took it as the the era of tight money is over, and it's going to go back to sort of what it used to be. And I think it's going to be severely disappointed pretty soon. Now, let's actually switch to the situation in Ukraine. Power grid wise situation is sort of remains sort of like difficult and no much improvement. So basically, Ukrainian energy distribution system is on the deathbed, and just another round of Russian attacks, similar to what happened on 23rd, and it's just basically going to be done. To be fair, mayor of Kyiv, which usually not the most intelligent person, but this time he was very honest, which was very surprising, and he just said that we will not be able to sort of survive all of these people in Kyiv, no matter what. There is no way to to provide basically heat, all of the sort of basic infrastructure necessities to support a large number of population. This meaning if there is another round of Russian attack and it sort of completely destroys the not destroys but basically creates disintegrate Ukrainian power distribution network. The population of Kyiv used to be before the war probably 3.5, maybe even pushing 4 million people. Because of the war, it's probably definitely less than 3 million, maybe probably close to 2 million at this point. So that's just your potential number of just out of one place refugees that could go. Where they're gonna go, nobody knows in the end. Maybe they will go to the west. Maybe they will just disperse into the villages across the Ukraine. So how it's going to play out, nobody knows. We'll find out, because I'm pretty sure that Russia will have another sort of final blow at the Ukrainian power grid network. Now let's actually switch to the battlefield. Let's see what's going on there. We're going to do it in a clockwise fashion, as we always do, starting from the north and then walking down uh, south and then west. So along the state border, situation more or less stable. Some small sort of activity in terms of artillery exchange, but nothing major. Now let's move to North Lugansk front line. So things here are actually, I think, slowly changing. I wouldn't say into Russian favor, but into the situation where Russia is probably going to have initiative pretty soon. Not well, by pretty soon, I would say in 2 to 3 weeks, basically towards the end of December. So as you can see, there were no any major Ukrainian attacks. Ukrainian forces are trying to basically hold the ground, and at the same time, Russian troops are sort of attacking. They're trying to, especially as you can see here, they're trying to put pressure on Ukrainian troops, and next their objective obviously Kupiansk. It's it's very straightforward. Not much not much there. So and this is, I just want to talk about this more, basically more strategic military developments. So as you know, well, has a lot of these conscripts, and they will be hitting in the large numbers. The earliest time they will be hitting the front line in large numbers. That will change the sort of power ratio into Russian favor in terms of soldiers. Probably sometime mid-December. That's the earliest one. And as I mentioned before, so there will be sort of, it's not going to be happening like just as one shot, but it's just going to be the flow will increase significantly starting sometimes mid-December, and that pipeline will be sort of, that through that pipe you will get a lot of those newly minted soldiers going into the battlefield, and the amount of Russian troops will increase through probably mid-January. So basically, like from, let's say, mid-December through mid-January, there will be significant increase in the number of the Russian soldiers on the battlefield. That will create opportunities for the Russian military command, and I'm pretty sure that they will try to use that to launch some offensives. One of the areas could be here, could be more likely, though, it is going to be Donbass, the whole Donbass front line. But that's more sort of a top objective, but everything is under question at that point, will be. And we're just seeing that sort of beginning of that story unfolding. Is probably starting, like, let's say today. We'll see what's going to happen next couple of days, but that's just sort of probably initial kind of like the change of the wind, essentially. So now let's move down south. Let's see what's going on in North Donbass. What's Wagner mercenaries are doing. They're continuing their attacks. So in the northern sector here, no advances, but as I mentioned many times before, that's the nature of the process. There's no advances, and then it's just big collapse of the front line on Ukrainian side. So actually, let me kind of like talk a little bit here what's going on in this Kurdyumivka and Ozeryanivka area that they captured a couple days ago. So as you can see, there's this water channel. You see, like it's kind of like a lighter line, essentially, that brings water from Dnipro to the entire Donbass. And so what they're doing, and I don't have updates for all of this area, but they probably already clearing up this whole area. Basically, they're going to be on the eastern side of this channel here. It's sort of very logical that Ukrainian troops probably withdrew from here, but I don't have updates. And then they're trying to kind of push in this whole area, right, to kind of continue moving along this channel. And also, what this means that this whole Ukrainian salient around Vidradivka is probably going to be evacuated in I would say fairly soon. Let's put it sooner than later. So essentially, the front line is going to be basically straight line, going south of Klishivka and going to this channel basically here pretty soon. So, which also brings us closer to the situation where Bakhmut is going to be outflanked at least from the south, and there is something, initial sort of situation here from the north. So, but this can remain stable as long as Russian troops are going to be advancing and getting to this towards closer to Ivanivsk. Basically, if Klishivka falls, and that's really creating significant problems for Ukrainian troops in Bakhmut in terms of being able to hold on to it. So basically, the bottom line is the chances of holding on to Bakhmut are going down for Ukrainian side. It's not going to happen sort of tomorrow, not in 5 days, but let's say in a month. We might be facing a situation that Ukrainian troops will be on the verge of losing Bakhmut, and especially might be more true, as I said. There will be flood of new Russian soldiers to the front line, which will create uh, probably, if not numerical advantage for the Russian side, then the number of the boots on the ground will be equal. And given that Russia has more sort of equipment, uh, uh, quantity wise, it creates opportunity for Russian side to sort of basically exploit that situation. So now let's move to the central Donbass front line. Things here also active. The same idea is being repeated here, but around Avdiivka. So think about this: Avdiivka is another Bakhmut, and the same idea, right? Outflank and forced withdrawal from of Ukrainian troops from Avdiivka. And then, as obviously futile attacks in Marinka, where essentially Russian troops hitting their head against the wall. But the only difference in this whole area is, and why Russian troops are not as sort of successful, is again because this is regular Russian troops, and this is not Wagner mercenaries, where I explained before that it's much better military machine than regular Russian army, basically. So that's why you see here sort of better overall situation for Ukrainian side, but it doesn't mean that it's good. It's also developing sort of in the wrong direction, but at much slower pace, essentially. So if I would say, like, okay, when it's going to be bad here, that Ukrainian troops may need to evacuate Avdiivka at this pace, probably 3-4 months. So it's maybe even more than that. So basically, the situation here is I would say not under control, but the negative developments are much slower here. Now let's quickly check Zaporizhya front line, which is always sleepy. The only difference is that looks like Ukrainian command start to bring the brigades from the Kherson group here. Some of them, not all. Some of them probably going to Bakhmut area. So we'll probably see more. Russian side is probably doing the same. The only sort of known is that 128th Brigade has been brought here somewhere to the Zaporizhia front line. As I learn more about Russian developments, I'll update that as well. But I'm pretty sure that many of those units are already here. We just haven't figured out where they are at this point. That's it for today. Thanks for watching, and until tomorrow. Bye bye.